Welcome to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lachelle Vimy, a peak performance coach and business strategist dedicated to helping you see what's possible within you, the blind spots that are holding you back, and the solutions to ensure success and fulfillment without the hustle. I use my secret sauce of metaphysics, brain science, and scripture to work with God to manifest your ideal life and business. If you're ready to create massive forward momentum in your business and bust through the blocks that drag you down, join me on the Spiral Up journey and create the clarity, confidence, and consistency to become the CEO that lives your life by design. It's time to create the sustainable impact, income, and time freedom you desire faster. Now is the time to spiral up. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lachelle Vimy, and it is so amazing to be here with you for another week, for another episode. And last week, I actually did a webinar with a colleague of mine, neurosurgeon Darlene Lobel, and she and I were able to talk about the healing frequencies that we use to specifically treat depression. And I was thinking about it. It's like, you know what? I think that this particular topic, the topic of depression, and how it can impact us as solopreneurs trying to manifest consistent 5-figure months is so important, because I think that sometimes we don't acknowledge the things that might be barriers that we never really gave much thought to. So today, what I want to do is to talk to you a little bit about depression specifically as a solopreneur and how it can really impact our progress and the growth of our business and honestly the quality of our life. Because let's just be real and honest that depression is way more than mindset, friend. It is a physical altercation in our brain that is disrupting the energy as well. And it's crucial for solopreneurs because it impacts our action or inability to get into action. It impacts the way that we energetically align with or essentially repel other people in the exchange of our ideas and correspondence, as well as it impacts the vibration and the law of vibration, what we're attracting. And so I wanted to allow for us to have a candid conversation around this. And I want to be really honest and vulnerable with you, because I also have absolutely experienced personally and firsthand the power of what depression can do and prevent us from doing when it comes to our business. Okay. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on myself. I feel like, I didn't want to acknowledge that this would be anything that I, had to deal with, even though it definitely runs in my family. So lots of immediate family members have struggled with depression for years. And it's like, gosh, probably, but didn't want to have to admit it, right? And it wasn't until I was on my fertility journey and my husband and I were trying to have baby number 2, and we were having to go through all this fertility crap in order for that to happen. And I got pregnant. I finally got pregnant. Oh my goodness. And I was so excited. And when you are going through fertility, those of you guys who are listening who have been through that, you get it. Like, you understand what I'm about to say. So I was taking shots. I was on all this medication. So there was no reason for me to have any suspicion that I wasn't pregnant. I felt pregnant. I was tired. Everything hurt. I was nauseous, all the things, right? So when we go into the doctor for our first ultrasound and they tell us that we were indeed pregnant with twins, but neither one of them were experiencing a heartbeat. And so we lost them. And goodness, I was devastated. I mean, this is literally the turning point, the pivotal moment that my faith journey, was completely transformed. And even though I was angry with God at the time, it brought me to a place where I have more of a relationship with him than I'd ever had. But it was devastating. And I, did what I thought I had to do. And I got back on the horse and I got to work and all the things. And I remember just like really struggling. And a friend of mine, could tell that I was off, and she's like, what's going on? And I told her, and she's like, you should go home. And my boss was so amazing and was giving me the rest of the week off. And I went home and I allowed myself to feel. And I thought, okay, great. I have a couple of days, like I can just get over this. But what happened was those days turned into weeks and months. And I would find myself on the, car ride anywhere. And I would just out of nowhere just start crying. And I couldn't shake it. And I didn't feel like I was being the mom to our son. I wasn't being the wife to my husband. I wasn't being the person that I knew I was. And it was like this situation brought my own physiology, what had always been underneath, kind of to the surface to a point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. And I remember going to the doctor and I remember saying, oh my gosh, like I just can't stop crying out of nowhere for no reason. And it was impacting my day to day and I needed help. But I also had all this guilt because I'm like, here I am trying to get pregnant. And like, what kind of mom goes in and seeks, this medication in order to feel better when I would be exposing that to the unborn child that I was trying to have. And it was just this conflict of emotions. And regardless of how you feel about it, please accept me for who I am and who I was, and I'm doing the best that I could at the time. And my doctor was amazing, and she made me feel so loved and so seen and so heard. And she said, Lachelle, you know what? I've been on Zoloft myself, even when I was pregnant. She's like, it's okay. And I trusted her so much. And so I was like, okay. And I was given medication. And I will tell you guys, the first time in my life, I actually felt like this is what I was supposed to feel like. Like, wow. Like I didn't get caught up in the what's the word I'm looking for? The just getting sucked into the stress of all of the little things that were piling up. It didn't make me less of who I was. It made me more of who God knew I could be, if that makes any sense. It's really hard to describe this. And I'm being vulnerable with you guys because I want you to understand that so many of us not only judge each other, but we judge ourselves. And that is not what's going to get us to where we want to go. That is not what's going to allow us to manifest the life that we want. And so I want to be open with you guys to just be real and to tell you like, hey, I've struggled before. This is part of my journey. Okay. Now I'm also telling you this because over the years, I have tried to wean myself off of this medication, not because I think that it's bad to be on it, but because I felt like I didn't necessarily love the side effects. And I was just curious. And years and years and years, I felt like it was something that I didn't have the willpower to do. And it was so stinking, frustrating because we know this, like there's a physiology to depression. And I was making myself guilty for not being strong enough to overcome it. But the thing is that I just hadn't found the right solution. And so Dr. Darlene and I have actually had a chance to talk about how I'm able to use energy and frequencies to be able to treat and prevent and heal the things that we're experiencing, even when it comes to things like depression. And so I am so excited to tell you more about that particular webinar towards the end of our conversation today. But what I wanted to do is set this tone because I feel like depression is something that, not a lot of us talk about. And people will maybe look at me and know that, like, if you know me personally, you know that I'm always smiling, that I'm always upbeat. The glass is always half full. And I've struggled with depression. And I've been on Zoloft. And I'm a normal person. And so allowing ourselves to just be real and be authentic and be vulnerable and allow ourselves to accept each other and ourselves is going to help us to get to where we want to go first and foremost. Okay. So what I wanted to do today is to give you a little bit more awareness about what depression actually is from a brain science perspective and from an energy perspective. I'm going to give you some practical solutions and some spiritual guidance to help you get to where you want to go. Okay. Now, the first kind of brain science thing that I want to acknowledge here, and I promise you that I'm not going to get too thick into the weeds of science, but what I want to do is to help you understand, like, oh, that's why I felt that way. Or if you're like, God darn it, like I know what I need to do, but I can't get myself to do it, which is a lot of my clients, we let our butts get in the way. There might be an actual physiological reason for why you're going through that. And we're going to give you some solutions on how you can get out of that. Okay. So we're going to start with the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that is responsible for decision-making, planning, and focus. All right. And so if you're struggling with overthinking, with lack of clarity, procrastination, and you really can't get yourself to make high stakes decisions, such as deciding on launching or pricing of your services or actual selling, it may be that depression has impacted your prefrontal
prefrontal cortex. Okay. So one thing that you can do to help with this particular part of your brain is allow yourself to take advantage of a one decision momentum exercise. So what is one small thing that you can do that is going to allow for you to then build on that momentum? So one of the things that I have found has been super helpful when it comes to overthinking, lack of clarity, procrastination, all of those things, is I will do something as simple as sending my happy birthday messages in Facebook. If you guys are friends with me on Facebook, you've probably gotten one of these, and it's really just a quick little message that I send to people that says, hey, I'm thinking about you. I hope you have a great day. If I have 10 people on this list that I'm sending that quick little message to, by the time I'm done, not only is my vibration higher than it was, but I've also gotten myself into action. I'm not sitting there thinking about working. I've actually started to do something. So therefore, I am now able to get myself into action and do something else, get my calendar started, get the to-do list going, all the things. But it's that one decision momentum that helped me get there. So what is something small, 30 seconds or less, that you can do to start to build up that initial momentum? Okay. The second brain science thing that I want to talk about is a dopamine deficiency. Dopamine is a hormone that our body produces in relation to physiology. Okay. Now, dopamine is actually the hormone neurotransmitter responsible for motivation and for goal pursuit. Okay. Now, what happens is that when we have a dopamine deficiency, we actually can get stuck in the inability to do things such as the content creation that we want to do, because the motivation isn't there and we don't see the goal for what it can be. We also oftentimes don't get into the networking or the sales or the things that we need to do to make our business grow. And one of the things that you can do to help with this is allow yourself to have the small, tiny goals create a release of your body of dopamine. Okay, so you get a little dopamine hit when you get small wins. So what is happening here is that our brain actually releases dopamine when we have anticipation of progress. So if you are having a hard time because of a dopamine deficiency to see the bigger goal and it feels so stinking far away, I want to ask you, what is a small goal that you can win? So maybe, I've shared with you and the guys on the podcast that, doing my physical therapy and my working out has been a struggle, right? And so when I think about it, it's because the bigger goal, like being toned or not having back pain anymore, feels so far away that it's really hard for me to get motivated. But if I can do a small win, like, hey, Lachelle, do 5 push-ups, 5 sit-ups, do one of my tiny little physical therapy exercises. And that little tiny win is going to give me the dopamine hit to keep going. It's going to be the thing that I can celebrate. I also am doing the daily calendar where I exit off. Jerry Seinfeld has coined this process, the red X method, where he literally said that he became the person he is because he wrote a joke every single day and he would mark it off in a calendar and he did not want to break his streak. And so I've been doing that with myself. So that little X is part of that little small win that I get to celebrate, and that dopamine is released. It's also going to help to also trigger the thing that I just talked about with that small bit of momentum. So doing something tiny is going to get you to the momentum to keep doing some things. Okay. All right. The other thing when it comes to brain science and depression is having a hyperactive amygdala. Okay. The amygdala is what we could refer to as our reptile brain. This is the fight or flight part of our brain. Okay. So in depression, we often have a hyperactive amygdala. So what does that mean on a real day-to-day basis? It means that we are going to be therefore more sensitive to rejection and feedback. So you get a no or you get ghosted in DMs and all of a sudden it feels like the end of the world and you're like, I am not doing that again. It's because your amygdala is hyperactive and it's making something small feel bigger than it is. You get fear-based avoidance then, and you start to pull back on visibility. You don't want to show up on social media. You don't want to show up in those live videos. You don't show up or you pull back on selling, or you pull back on having boundaries with clients, because of fear of disappointing somebody or fear of not getting the sale. And so that hyperactive amygdala is creating this catastrophe in your mind of what could happen when this happens, or if it did happen, it makes it feel so much bigger than it possibly already is. And so a way that you can combat this is to reframe that rejection just as data, telling yourself that that is literally not the end of the world, and it is just the energetic redirection towards the aligned clients that you're supposed to have, right? And so just knowing that every little bit of failure is really just feedback. It's data. It's more information. And we can keep building on that. We can keep getting better and better. And so when we stop creating this like giant piece of what we fear is all going to happen, it allows for us to start seeing what it really is. Okay. Now, I'm going to switch gears, still on the same energy or the same, physiologic science backed, but I'm going to switch it more to the energy thing as it relates to the brain. So this is really interesting. You guys have heard me say many, many times, I'm sure on the show, that it's not what we do, it's who we are while we do it. Okay. It's not what we do, it's who we are while we do it. So it doesn't matter if you are showing up on a podcast, if you are sending a voice message, if you're typing an email, if you're posting something on social media, if you're getting on a sales call, it doesn't matter what you do. It's the person, it's the posture, it's the energy, the confidence that you have while you are actually creating that activity. Okay. It doesn't matter if it is over a written word, if it's a text message, if it's a Facebook message, if it's a post, or if it's an actual interaction with somebody in person or over the phone. It doesn't matter. The other person will pick up on your energetic vibe. Now, it does it through two things. It's so freaking cool and fascinating because I love to explain like why woo-woo is actually science, okay? So we have these things inside of our brains called mirror neurons. And mirror neurons are the part of our brain that picks up on and absorbs the energy of other things, specifically people, into our subconscious. This is why your brain can perceive things from the energetic standpoint. You guys have probably heard me talk about resonant energy, scalar waves, quantum entanglement. All of those things can be used to describe how we are impacted by other people's vibrations. That means that other people are impacted by your vibrations. So that means that if you are showing up and allowing your insecurities, your lack of motivation, your uncertainties, your I don't feel like it energy to show up in what you're doing, the other person is going to be picking up on that. And so I want you to recognize that before you are doing the thing, I want you to shift your energy before you get into action. Oftentimes I'll do things like putting on a really great playlist and dancing around because it's shifting my body, it's shifting my energy. Maybe I just need a little pep talk from a bestie. Maybe I just need to do some affirmations. Maybe I need to do some jumping jacks just to move my body or, focus on my why and why I'm doing this. But all of those things are meant to shift your energetic state so that the other person's mirror neurons are not subconsciously absorbing your suboptimal energy. Okay. It's not what you do, it's who you are while you do it. So if you are sending out a message or if you are posting and you're from this less optimal and energetic space because of depression symptoms, the other person is not going to likely want to engage in that or respond to or, say, where do I sign up? If you can shift your energy before you do that, the exact same action is going to be more fruitful. So freaking cool. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about when it comes to the science of depression and how it's impacting your ability to manifest those 5-figure months, I want to talk about a dysregulated nervous system. Okay. Now, this is kind of really just another way to say the fight or flight. And I think a lot of us, especially if you have symptoms of depression, are caught up in this area of your body that just feels like it's constantly in fight or flight. Okay. And what's happening is you have an increase in cortisol release, which is the stress hormone, and you have a decrease in the body's release of serotonin, which can be part of the mood. All right. And so what this is going to give you, this dysregulated nervous system and this increase in cortisol release and decrease in serotonin, is an aura of stress and desperation. Again, the other person, the recipient's mirror neurons are going to pick up on that. And people are going to make decisions, buying decisions, when they perceive somebody as feeling safe and grounded versus frantic and uncertain. So if you have a dysregulated nervous system, it is going to create an aura that is going to make people perceive you differently than you want them to. And so if you're not getting the results that you want, if you can relate to any of the symptoms that I'm talking about, I want you to recognize that there are things that we can do. And specifically when it comes to the dysregulated nervous system, I'm going to have you do some things before you engage in the interaction, before you send the email, before you post, before you get on the sales call. Okay. I want you to breathe. When we can breathe, when we can take, I call this, just even if you take some slow, deep breaths, that's going to regulate your nervous system. It's going to flip off the fight or flight, and it's going to allow for your automatic nervous system or your rest and digest part of your nervous system to take over. Okay. You can also do something called boxed breathing, which really just means that you take a big breath in, hold for about as long as it took for you to breathe in, and then you release for as long as it took for you to hold and breathe in, and then you hold, and then you breathe in. And so you just see how you're doing this for all of the equal amount of time. Inspiration, hold, expiration, hold into a box. Okay. And again, that regulates the nervous system because it shuts off the fight or flight, the sympathetic, and it allows for your parasympathetic nervous system to kick back in. That's going to regulate that cortisol, that serotonin, and you're going to therefore impact your aura. And you're not going to come across as all stressful and desperate, and you're going to actually be able to come across as more confident and ready to serve. Okay. Another thing that you can try is just praying. Give it to God. Allow Him to insert His peace into you. Allow you to be a recipient of things that are for the best good of you and for the people that you're meant to serve. We do not have to carry all of the weight on our lives, of our business, on ourselves. That God, the power that created the entire universe, that has led you essentially to your ministry in the marketplace, also wants to support you. And I've told you the story before about a conversation that I've had with one of my coaches, and she's like, Lachelle, you feel like you seem like you have a lot of weight on your shoulders. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, that's how I feel. And she said, how much of that responsibility is to grow your businesses on you, and how much is it on God? I'm like, I don't know, like 50%. She's like, so you're telling me that the creator of the entire universe is expecting you to carry half the weight? I'm like, I guess not. So show up, do your part, and then allow for God to take care of the rest, okay? Another thing that I want you to try doing is visualization. Visualize yourself being successful. Visualize yourself being, on the successful side of the situation. I want you to visualize the person saying yes, and that they're saying, oh my gosh, I've been praying for this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And allow yourself to be the calm, confident person that is sent from heaven to be able to bless them. Okay. Now, if you are like me and you're like, oh my gosh, Lachelle, I never really thought about it before. Definitely consider seeing a healthcare professional, like by all means. What I want you to avoid doing is judging yourself. I want you to think, now that I know better, I can do better. And if you're not quite ready to, see a physician yet, or if you're like me and you have been on medications for a while because you know that this has been an issue, but you're like, I'd love to maybe start to wean myself off of them, or just get to the root of things, because I didn't get into it into this podcast, but I'm going to say that depression actually is first causing a change in your alpha brain waves, which again is energetic and frequency based. And so I would love to invite you to the webinar that Dr. Darlene Lobel and I, a neurosurgeon and my background in anesthesia, come together and talk about the brain and how depression can be perceived from a symptom standpoint, and then what you can do with energy to actually start to improve the quality of your life. And so I'm going to invite you to go ahead and click on the link in the show notes, and just a little extra, incentive to actually watch the dang thing, because so many of us are like, oh my gosh, yes, I want that. And then we don't actually make the time to do it. There is a special incentive bonus that you guys will get access to, but it's only available 72 hours after you've received the receipt of this webinar link. Okay. So watch the video and then you will be able to qualify for this amazing bonus. I don't want you to miss out on that. So there's a little plug for that. Okay. I cannot wait to see you next week inside the Spiral Up podcast, where we're going to dive into this a little bit deeper. And I just want you to know that you're not alone, that I hope that we all can just support one another. We can allow ourselves to continue to manifest a consistent income so that we can make a bigger impact in the world and on our family, and to do so with love and joy and ease and flow while we do it. And that starts with us supporting each other. All right, you guys, I will see you next week, and I can't wait to have more conversations around this. Bye, everybody.
So much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Each honest review helps me spiral up so that I can serve you even better. Whether you're feeling a lack of impact, income, or time freedom, or perhaps you're just ready for massive momentum in your business, let's chat. Apply for a breakthrough call so that you can gain clarity, identify what's holding you back, and make a plan to spiral up. Head on over to im-lifebydesign.com/breakthrough or access the link in the show notes. For immediate support, log into our community, the Better Club. We focus on inspiration, tactical guidance, and support. This is a community that wants to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business, and we're going to help you do the same. Let's spiral up, friends.